Welcome back to the M-Dawg YouTube channel. Today I have a question for you, my viewer. Are you struggling right now? Do you feel like life is way harder than it should be in that you're having to lock in every second of every day just to get by? I'm gonna give you a couple seconds to think about it. If you just said yes, then I'm really sorry. That is horrible. And if you said no, then I'm really happy for you and I wish that I felt the same. And I feel like a lot of people probably just thought to themselves, yes, I'm struggling right now, because that's the sentiment that I've been hearing over and over again, which is why I'm uploading a video about it. So I've been hearing this phrase over and over again that everyone is struggling right now. And I suppose I know like it's meant to be like, to give me a sense of not feeling alone, or, to give me some kind of comfort that, I'm not the only one failing in my life, I guess, or like I shouldn't be so hard on myself. But honestly, the amount of times I've heard this has just brought me nothing but a feeling of loneliness and frustration. Now, why is that? I feel like if everyone is struggling right now, then there's something very wrong. And it's not something I'm hearing from like only a couple people. I'm hearing this from like doctors. I'm hearing this from like my therapist. I'm hearing this from friends, and I'm hearing this from like people on the internet, like all over the place. There are constantly videos being put out about like how to get through your day to day, how to, lock into the grind set, how to get better, how to get out of your crap life, your crappy situation. And it's like, there's always something you should be doing. There's everything, if you're not successful, you're doing it wrong. You know what I mean? And I guess when I talk about this and I talk about my feelings of my feelings of inadequacy in my life, and my struggle with doing like basic daily tasks, it doesn't make me feel any better hearing that everyone is dealing with the same thing, because honestly, I don't want other people to be feeling like this. And it makes me really sad to know that there are a lot of people that are. But I suppose the only thing I can do is, I guess, reach out and as a person say, hey, if you feel like I do, like, it's not just you, bro, like, you're not crazy, it's a problem. And I've been wondering where this sentiment has like been coming from, and I think it's a lot of things. I feel like loneliness is a big contributor to this like generalized struggling of like people in the world, because even though we're more connected and it's like very easy to find someone and reach out to them, you are not, or at least me personally, I'm not connected to people like in public. I find myself being vulnerable right now. I find myself like looking at the ground a lot when I'm in public or like walking past somebody, because I dread the feeling of like that thought process of when someone's walking by you, whether or not you look at them. And if you do decide to look at them and they look at you back, do you decide to smile or do you say hello? You don't want to come off weird, so you gotta, but then in order to avoid the whole thing and potentially embarrassing myself, I just stare at the ground and I probably look like a dweeb. There's nothing wrong with it though, because I'm fearful. I'm fearful of other people deeming me as embarrassing or cringe. And I feel like this whole cringe culture we got going on is probably a big contributor to that, because I worry a lot of being deemed cringe and being like thrown out of society or something, you know what I mean? Not that I am exempt from cringe. I have for sure been in middle school, as I'm sure you have too, and nobody wants to talk about those years, alright? I don't either. But like, I feel like this loneliness is forcing everyone to like struggle in silence, you know what I mean? And it's really frustrating because where do you turn when you have no one? It's no secret that there's like a loneliness epidemic going on right now. And what do when you don't have anyone to reach out to? All you have is like people on the internet. Like, sure, you could just look up ASMR bestie hanging out with you, but you know that they're not actually there. Like, sure, you could pretend for an hour that they are, but they're not gonna like ask you questions. They're not gonna, you know what I mean? I feel like so this like loneliness is a big part of why people are struggling, but I also feel like money is a big problem for people right now. I'm personally not exempt from this problem. I am having to deal with some pretty difficult financial situations. I have dug myself out of like a horrific hole. Like there was a point like a couple months ago, or I mean like 6 months ago, where the only source of income I had was DoorDash. And when, let me tell you, the like agony of having to deliver food orders for like pray people give a good tip so you can pay your bills is the most horrific feeling I ever had. I had nothing. I was so exhausted all the time, and I'm so lucky now that I have just a tiny bit more wiggle room and I'm not like on the clock all the time having to work and be in fear that I'm going to lose my home. And when I used to talk about these financial troubles with people, it tended to make them uncomfortable, especially because of how desperate my situation was. I was doing the best I could. I was working as hard as I could to just get by. And while I wasn't asking anyone for, I guess, help, because nobody around me really had the financial capabilities to help me out, it was still uncomfortable, and I could tell that the people I would talk to were like really uncomfortable about it, because money is a weird thing to talk about. It really is, because it's so, people say money doesn't buy happiness, but money buys a house, it buys food, and it buys, security in your life. Oh, mamas. Sorry, that's my little bagel. But anyway, I guess like money is really important, and I hate to say that, but after staring down like homelessness in the face, I understand now that like agony. I'd never felt that pain in my life. That fear, that like gut wrenching fear that like I need to push myself harder or I'm not gonna live. I'm not gonna survive. And it got to the point where I was working every day, like 12 hours a day, door dashing, doing orders, and I started like losing my mind. Like I actually started like regressing in my mental health. Like I started like borderline being delusional again, and tiptoeing on the edge of psychosis. And it struggles like that can kill you. It can kill you. And that's why I hate so much that people keep saying everyone is struggling right now. And if it seems always when I'm talking about like financial issues or feeling alone, that people tend to say that. So what I'm supposed to derive from this, I guess, is that people are feeling lonely and stuck. sorry, this is a little hard to talk about because of difficulties, you know what I mean? Anyway, you know, what do if you are that person and you were me? You're in the situation, you're at the point where I was a couple months ago, where you are breaking yourself trying to make it through and you don't have many people to talk to about it. And if you try to talk about it, it's uncomfortable. You know what I mean? It just makes you feel worse because the other person isn't like being super supportive or whatever reason. Honestly, I don't know. Because I would say, always practice more self-care because that's what I always heard. But what do you do when you're exhausted? You've pushed yourself. Sure, you're gonna make it by, but you have next month to worry about. You know what I mean? Like, sure, you made rent this month. What about next month? You got to start grinding on that next month's rent. You don't have time to sit and take a bubble bath. You need to take a shower and get to bed, or else you're not getting sleep. You know what I mean? You don't have the money to afford to make anything for dinner besides like spaghetti. You know what I mean? Like, you feel like crap all the time. And I don't really know. What got me through was just little tiny moments of peace. Like, I'm not like great financially. I'm living paycheck to paycheck, if even you want to call it that. But I used to just go to parks and I would take a moment, I'd sit. Libraries are free. They can give out tickets to, like, free tickets to places. I got to go to this place called the Dawes Arboretum. It was kind of like a really big garden tree sanctuary thing, and it was absolutely stunning. And I got free tickets from my library where up to 6 people could go. I would look into that because when you don't have the money to spare and you can't even afford to go grab a Big Mac from McDonald's, anything free you can get your hands on, go get your hands on it. You know what I mean? If you want to use the McDonald's, meal app and get like 50% off your McDonald's just for a little treat every now and then, you want to grab yourself a coffee, do it. That is the only way that I got through, was giving myself little treats. And try not to, because I did this really bad and I was really bad about it, but I always made myself feel really guilty for any dollar I spent, even if it was just one Big Mac in the whole like 3 weeks. It was scary because I could have used that $5 for something else, you know what I mean? But honestly, that's the only way I got by, was giving myself tiny breaks, giving myself a little variety. If I could afford, instead of just making noodles and tomato sauce, maybe I could get a little bit of hamburger. Now I'm having hamburger too. That it tastes like different. It's more fun. You feel a little bit better if you can manage to get, I don't know, just like a small little thing. And I don't think that like buying things brings happiness. I don't believe that at all, especially with the level of frugality I've had to exercise in the last year or more. But I do think that experiences help a lot when you're struggling. And if you can afford, and even if you can't afford to do things like that, and you really can't afford to spare that $5, just go somewhere outside. Like, sit and just breathe the fresh spring air and just sit for a moment and just try. And I know that that dark cloud swaying above your head is going to be, berating you with all those thoughts of things, you're worried about, you're having a hard time with. Just try and just push it away for a second. And trust me, I know what that dark cloud can do to people. I've stared at myself. I've stared death in the face more than once. So I understand what that darkness can bring, okay? But I think it's important to do little tiny things. Light a candle if you have it. Maybe pick up a new thing. I started crocheting. I got lucky because I never bought any of my own stuff. I expressed interest in it, and people got me some yarn and hooks as a gift, which I was really grateful for because I did end up really liking it. Books have always been a thing for me. Luckily, libraries obviously are free. You can pick up books, but you also have movies and CDs. It's just like libraries are like a really big escape for me. And even if you aren't into books, they do have other things. And I guess like I'm kind of talking about a lot of different stuff. Like I meant for this to be like a video specifically about everyone struggling, and I didn't originally. I actually wrote a script for this one. I'm not following it at all. It was just kind of like a little bit of a paper of like what I might talk about. And on my paper I said that I didn't have a solution. But I guess sitting here and thinking about it, I hope that helps even a little bit. I got really into DIYs, making things out of sticks. Making things out of sticks and leaves and stuff. I made pine cone garland with some strings and pine cones I found outside. And just anything that can give you just a little bit of joy, change your space, give you just anything you can see that like shows just a tiny bit of progress. You know what I mean? Because that is so important. It's just looking around and seeing, something's different, something's changed. And even if it is just some pine cones hanging on the darn ceiling, that's different. It will help, I promise. And I guess I'm just sad to hear that everyone is having a hard time, and I hope I am not exempt from this. I'm really struggling too with a lot of things that I could talk about for the next 4 hours, but I really just wanted to blabber, I guess, yap about things will. I don't like when people say things will get better, but they do. And things might get worse before they get better. But even if you don't think getting a Big Mac means things are better, trust me, when you're down in it, and when you are down in the trenches, bro, that Big Mac is gonna mean so much more to you than it did when you were just hungry, I guess. You know what I mean? Like you're just bored and wanted a Big Mac. Anyway, I really hope that something out of this. I kind of just ended up talking about a lot of random stuff, but I hope something in this is gonna help, because I don't want everyone to be having a hard time like I keep hearing. I'm really sorry. I do know a lot of people right now are having a really hard time mentally, physically, financially, and I guess I just want to extend a hand through the screen and say, I'm here and I care if, no one else does. And I'll keep trying to help, and I'll keep, oh, hi, Pico. I'll keep trying to do what I can to make things better, to try to bring awareness, I guess, to the struggles of people's lives. Anyway, I hope you all take care and give yourself a little treat. And if you need an excuse to, I'm giving you one. Go get a dang treat. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the video. Leave a comment, leave your thoughts, feelings, struggles. It's all welcome here. And I hope to see you guys again soon. Bye.